Alright, cool. We are now streaming, so, you know, fun stuff. Woohoo! So how are you guys all doing? So, as you probably noticed, Jesse's not here, but he said, I'm sorry, he couldn't make it tonight, but, yeah. How are you all doing? Good? Which I just realized I need to take attendance, because otherwise I'm totally gonna... We'll just do this. Being here. Alright, cool. So, we are actually starting, so this is, I believe this is where you guys left off last night, right? Look familiar? You know, that's, what? The bottom right corner? Okay. The, like, flex pieces to, like, get it laid out? Okay. Cool. Gotcha. Alright, so, before we get to this, I asked Jeff, he said that you guys didn't actually get to the part where you were, like, committing and pushing your code, like, that you did last night. Okay, cool. So we're going to actually use that as a quick opportunity to do a little Git review. Which actually, just to give you guys a heads up, I know that I'm trying to get Jeff to get back to me about, maybe he did already, about having you guys actually either move forward on building out a little bit more on the Syracuse.com layout as part of your homework for the weekend, or I know he mentioned that there was another design he wanted to potentially have you guys build. We will connect and decide on that and get it posted ASAP for what to do specifically for homework. I do have a homework assignment that's going to be dropping at like 8:15. That is, some of you may have done it already. It's the Learn Git JS practice, like doing the first 2 levels of that for like the remote, like the main one and the remote one, just because it's like, it's like an interactive, it's basically like a Git game, essentially, that you can just, like, it'll tell you what to do it. So doing that is just good practice on something that, like, you can't break, because it's just it's just an interactive thing, which is cool. And then also doing the first, like, the unpaid version of the, like, command line on Code Academy, just as, like, review, because I know we went over, like, way too much stuff on Tuesday, and so it's just good to have a chance to type through a lot of that stuff, like, and just have a chance to play with it. They also cover a few extra little things that, like I said, there's a lot with both of these things, so we didn't get to everything. Alright, so the theme for this evening is going to be, I don't know what to do, so you guys have to tell me what to do. So I have all these changes in my code, and I need to figure out how to, like, you know, commit them. But how do I figure out where I'm at first? Like, what's the command? Okay, so print directory, we just merged some stuff. So print directory does get me, pwd gets me where I like physically am in Git world. How do I figure out like where's the, like, status? There we go. Alright, so we've made a whole bunch more changes in here. So we added because we added our folder, right? So we have all these modified files because these were the files that we added that we were watching, and then now we have all these untracked files because you guys added like a base folder, regions folder, views folder. Familiar? The slash cache files are just in there, but that's fine. So we want to make sure we are actually tracking these things still. So before we actually commit everything, we got to make sure we're actually watching all the things we're supposed to be, right? So it may or may not exist on the screen somewhere over here. What do I do to get all these files watched that are currently untracked? Yep. So git add, and then so is there a way for me to add all these files at the same time without having to add them one by one? So dot will add everything in the folder I'm currently in, which is not necessarily a terrible thing. But what about, do these files have something in common so that we could, yeah, so we can actually just add the CSS folder. So there are obviously some things in there that are already tracked, but it should add everything else. All right, so let's run git status again. All right. So we have added, so adding everything, note the color change, so we have green here. We've added all the stuff that was inside CSS, which is good. But it means we're still missing index.html. So we can run git add again. And run git status again. All right, so I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to catch up with me. If you run git status, you should be seeing a whole bunch of green files here, which either say modified or new, depending on their file. Mm-hmm. That your images file is not tracked. So you can go ahead and add the images file if you want to, or your images folder. If you're seeing your images folder as not being tracked currently, you can go ahead and add it if you want to.
I don't know where.
All right, just a sec here.
dollar, like, or if you're getting a dollar sign, take control, it means you're still inside of your staff locker, so like, that's still running, you're not actually like, so. What about the kids? That's just that's just a Mac thing. All right, so I'm actually gonna teach you guys a quick new command that we didn't talk about last time. So generally speaking, when you're working on a repository, for this, so generally speaking, when you're working on a repo, if you're working by yourself, most of the time this isn't going to be a problem. If you're working with other people and somebody else might have pushed changes while you were working on something else, you always want to do a Git Pull before you do a Git Push. So what Git Pull does is it says, hey, any other commits that have been like pushed, we want to grab them before we actually go ahead. Which I just realized I got ahead of myself. We need to commit these first. All right. So if I want to do a commit, it's git. Okay, I totally just said the answer to this like 2 seconds ago. If I want to make a commit, it's git commit. So this one, we're gonna go with a long message just because it's a little fun. All right. So if I do git commit and I don't use that M flag in there, right? The M, so the M option. So there's two. Remember, there's two ways you can do a commit message. One of them is I just say git commit and I hit enter. It's going to take me into Nano because that's the default for this terminal. And then it's going to let me write out my commit message. Basically, you can't do a commit without a message. So like it's basically saying, hey, we're not taking the snapshot of history without you actually like making at least a note that says what it is. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and let's see. We not yet. We're going to actually do that. I got ahead of myself. My apologies. Alright, so this is just, I'm just throwing a commit message in here. Oops, if I can type. Alright, so that's just my quick summary of what you guys did last night. So you guys split out your SAS files into what are called partials when you have things that get compiled into one big file. Generally, just generically, they're called partials. That's not specific to SAS.
and then you guys further fleshed out the layout. So then to save this, I'm just going to hit Control X to exit. It's going to ask me if I want to save. I'm going to go yes. Just a sec. Do that. Not actually. So, sorry, I forgot. So you're going to do Control X. Once you've written your commit message, Control X, hit yes to save it, and then you have to hit enter. Last part. Control X. X to exit. Because it'll, when you exit, it'll be, you know how like when you try to close something on your desk, like, and it'll be like, do you want to save it? So it's the same concept. You just say yes or no with Y or N, and then hit enter. So you guys seeing something similar to this? Nope. This is why we're doing this in class.
So instead of doing git commit without the M, just do it with the M, and then you don't have to go into nano. So it's git commit dash M, and then my message. Except, you know, write something a little more descriptive than that, but that's the concept. Alright. I just typed this in so that you guys could see it if you needed it. Is everyone seeing something that looks vaguely similar to this? Yeah, so I'm not quite sure why Nano is not cooperating, but, or apparently Vim in some cases, which, I don't know. Anyways, it's possible that I have my default set to Nano instead of Vim, and that might be part of the problem. But, okay. The point is we are all in the same place now. Okay, cool. So, generally speaking, best practice, we're going to run a Git Pull. And you should get an already up to date because we haven't actually pushed anything and you guys are all working on your own repositories, but I just want to get you in the habit of, like, if you're working on a repository with another person and you try to push and there are other changes, you're just going to get an error and it's going to force you to pull anyways. So it's a good habit to just get into that before you push, you pull. So, yeah, I don't know who came up with the metaphor of the whole push-pull thing, but it is what it is. So, so now we're going to go ahead and run git push. I also want to note something. So you know how, like, last time we did, like, git push, origin, master, like, there was all this stuff. So you only have to do that with that U flag. That actually sets it up to say, like, here's the default place that I'm pulling and pushing to. So now when you do a git pull, it automatically knows, oh, I want to pull from origin on GitHub, and I want to push to GitHub. So, like, it just sets it up, basically. Only if, for some reason, you changed it, like, if you, for example, switched computers and checked out your code on another computer and then made changes and pushed them up there. So if it was different, basically, then yes, you would need to pull. But if, like, you know for certain that the repo you're working with exactly matches, you don't technically have to worry about it. It's more of like a get used to the idea, because when you're working on a team, which you are 95% of the time when you're in the working world, unless you're freelancing, like, it's easier to just remember to pull, because you'll run into errors, frankly. It's like, otherwise, if you forget and there are changes, it'll be, Git will be like, yeah, no can do. There's a bunch of problems here, like, this doesn't match, we're not ready for this. Because you're basically trying to, like, commits go in a specific order, and so you're basically trying to, like, if you try to push stuff, you're trying to, like, put stuff on top of the pile, except where you think the top of the pile is actually different than what the remote thinks is the top of the pile. So you're, like, trying to shove stuff in the middle, and it's like, nope, not an option, basically. Okay, cool. So go ahead and run git status just to double check. Cool. So something else, another way you can tell if you technically need to pull from origin master, it says, see here, it says you're on branch master, so we know where we are, and then your branch is up to date with origin / master. So, yep, yeah. So that's part of why you always initiate your Git repository inside your project folder, and not like you wouldn't want to initiate a Git repository inside of, like, if you had a projects folder where you kept, like, all your projects, you wouldn't want to do it like at the high level, because otherwise it would cross over. Alright. I kind of would like to run you guys really quickly through branching. What time is it? 6:10. Also need to talk about Deb Tools. Alright, we're gonna, like,
do like a tiny branch demo just so that you guys know what it is and you've like done it once. Branches are helpful if you're trying to like work on a specific piece of your project, but you don't necessarily want it to affect everything else. So, for example, right, we pushed all that stuff to GitHub, and let's just say, so like for example, I have my personal website hosted on GitHub, the GitHub pages, so it has the same type of feature. Like when I push stuff to GitHub, it automatically gets published to the public. So say I want to like make a bunch of updates, but I'm not ready to like push those publicly, I could just make them like locally, and then like, okay, well we're good, like I'll just remember not to push and it'll be fine. But then if I push accidentally in the middle of working on something, I'll like break a whole bunch of stuff and have to roll it all back. It would be a pain. So if I want to split that stuff out and not have to worry about it, like worry about me accidentally pushing it to the wrong place or whatever, so what I can do is I can do something called, so git checkout. So git checkout is how you switch from one branch to another. But then if you do git checkout /b, so that is the flag for branch, you can actually add a new branch name in here. So let's see, we'll just go with, I'm like, let's do something fun. Alright, you know, we'll go with branch fluffy just for fun. Alright. So what I just did is I did two things at once. You can actually do these in two separate commands. You can say git branch fluffy or git branch name, and that'll make your branch. And then you can do git checkout branch name, and that'll like move you to your new branch. So what we just did is we just did it at the same time, essentially. So I said, hey Git, I want to make a new branch and I want to move to it. So now, if I run git status, see, it's now telling me instead of master, I'm now on fluffy over here. And it says, hey, you haven't actually made any changes. So this is also helpful if I have a long-term project I want to work on and I like, but then somebody comes to me and is like, there's a bug, you need to fix it. I can create a new branch for the bug off of the master one, go work on the bug, go back to it, and then I can go back to my other branch with all of my other changes for my other project. I don't have to worry about them like accidentally overwriting each other or like breaking each other, and it's just helpful, basically. So that's the like super tiny intro into branching. That interactive assignment I gave you guys will actually has branching stuff in there, so you'll get to run into it and play with it a little bit more. For the meantime, I'm going to have you guys actually all go back to master because we don't need to stay there. So go ahead and do git checkout and master. Yep. So it's yep.
And then the dash B makes a new branch, so you're like doing it at the same time in one line instead of doing both separately.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. So it's yeah.
Just do git checkout, just switch branches and doing that other, or you can do git dash B to make
Yep. Yeah, it's branches are great if you're working on like multiple projects at the same time. And sometimes if you're working on multiple projects at the same time, you don't know like which one will get done first. So you don't necessarily, you want to be working off of the current status of your code, not like this project on top of this project, because now all of a sudden it's like project 2 is dependent on you finishing project 1, and they might not be on the same timeline.
How's everybody else doing? Are we all on master branch? So if you're not on master branch, go ahead and do git checkout master. We made that extra branch just so you know. Yeah, it will not know what you're trying to do. Yep, because with the command line, I could be writing any program I want. Yeah, so like just because I'm doing Git stuff right now, I mean, I could decide to go ahead and print working directory here if I wanted to, or maybe I will decide to have my computer not be frozen. Yeah, apparently not. What did I do? Alright. Great, alright, we'll try switching over to my PDF and jumping back and see if that helps. I also just realized, okay, good, we are actually. Just realized hopefully I remembered actually. Alright, terminal. Close you and reopen you, because apparently you are not cooperating. Or just totally frozen. Got it. Alright. Well, I will join the rest of the class in quitting VS Code and restarting it. I don't know what's going on. Alright.
and I showed you guys the start typing, hit tab, it'll autocomplete for you, right? So when you're, so I just was, I have my workspace set up to be in my module 2 directory instead of just specifically my Syracuse.com one. That's totally fine. But because I wanted to cd into my Syracuse.com directory where the Git, where Git is set up, instead of typing out the whole Syracuse.com, I just started typing Syracuse. If you hit tab, it'll finish it for you. It's just helpful. There we go. Now we're working. We're back to cooking with fire here. Alright. Any questions on Git before we move on? I mean, I'm sure there are probably questions, but maybe, maybe not. Good. You guys are awake, hopefully. At least for the moment. So, I know the feeling. But the nice thing is you don't have class tomorrow. Not that I want you to be, like, happy about not being here, but, you know, getting to the end of the week is always nice. Just put it that way. Plus, we're gonna do, frankly, this is one of the, like, this is simultaneously way simpler than what I taught you last class, and, like, just really, really fun. So, I'm kind of excited to do stuff tonight. Not that I wasn't excited about command line and Git, but it's like, that's the, like, heavy, sort of, like, dry, like, super useful. This is also super useful, but this is also, like, this is the, like, we're gonna teach you guys how to mess with basically any code you run into on the internet, like, in a very temporary but fun and educational kind of a way. So, have any of you guys ever opened something that looks like this accidentally in Chrome or any other browser you're using? Or on purpose? I mean, that's allowed too. It didn't have to be accidental. So, this is developer tools. So, every browser has a set of developer tools. They look, like, slightly differently. Like, they do a lot of the same things. Like, where you find the things that you need to do are, like, in slightly different spots in each browser. We're going to talk about the Chrome ones tonight, just because they're kind of one of the most popular ones. Firefox has pretty solid ones too, but Chrome is kind of cool because it has, you can actually download, like, extensions to your developer tools that work with, like, specific technology stacks. So, like, for example, this is just a screenshot of mine. I don't know if you can see it, but it says Redux in here. So you will actually, once you guys get into React, Redux partners with React for, like, a bunch of cool state management stuff. But they also have developer tools you can download so that you can actually, like, get a full status update of your state in the dev tools, which is kind of awesome. Alright, that side note. Alright. Alright, so like I said, what are dev tools? They exist in every browser. Oh, and by the way, this is in the presentation files on Module 2, just as a side note. So, DevTools exist inside of every browser. They just have slightly different features. I'll be honest, the ones in, if you ever have to use the DevTools inside of Internet Explorer, I'm really sorry. They're really unfortunate. Don't do nearly all the things that you want them to do. But frankly, you will get used to using, like, start with getting used to using Chrome DevTools, and you will eventually want to actually learn how to use the DevTools in every browser you use, because it's not like, oh, the code I wrote is having an issue in Firefox, I can now, like, debug it in the Chrome developer tools. You have to use whatever DevTools are in whatever browser you're in. So yeah, like I said, get used to the ones in Chrome, play with them, and then start playing with the other ones in the other browsers just to like kind of find where things are. So Dev Tools are cool because they let you debug your code, which is very helpful. They also let you see and adjust both your HTML, CSS, and frankly on-page JavaScript if you want to. And the really fun thing about them is they basically let you see the source code, well, the public facing source code of any any website on the internet, and you can mess with it. So not in a, like, it's only for your particular session, so it's not like, oh yeah, I'll just open this and just like break, like I'll just go break Amazon, woohoo! But you can like just basically open it up and play with it. It's actually, I'm actually having you guys do that for a homework assignment. So just a preview. Part of your homework assignment for this weekend is going to be pick one of your favorite websites, give me a screenshot of the page when it first loaded and then the page after you played with it. I actually do this all the time at work because often we want to change like somebody's like, hey, can you fix like a couple little layout things? And instead of like me recreating the whole page in some kind of graphical program and then like, you know, saving the image for them and then sending it to them and blah 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 blah. It's like, well, why would I do that? I can just open the code for the I can just open the code for our website, make a couple of quick tweaks, take a screenshot, and be like, hey, look, it's your design. It's just simpler. All right, so accessing Dev Tools. There are three main ways to access Dev Tools. Most the longest way to do it is to open up Chrome. Oh, that's a PDF I didn't realize I had open. All right. All right, we're gonna actually escape out of that one. We don't need that open anymore. We did that already. There we go. All right. So you can do View, Developer, and Developer Tools. So this will pull open your Developer Tools, which generally speaking opens to your Elements tab first and foremost. So you can do View, Developer, Developer Tools. That takes forever, frankly, and it's kind of annoying. But you know, if you forget, View, Developer, Developer Tools. The other quicker, in my opinion, slightly easier way to do it is, so right-click or two-finger click on Mac and inspect element. So that will also pop open your Developer Tools. The biggest difference between inspect element and the View, Developer, Developer Tools, if you notice, this actually came up with one highlighted because it highlighted the piece of code I inspected. So if you know specifically you want to open the Developer Tools and you're like, I want to look at this thing right here, doing inspect is generally the easiest way to just land on it immediately. And then frankly, my favorite way to open Developer Tools is actually just Command Shift and I. Yep. Oh, just kidding. Command Alt I. Apparently I just opened Mail. Sorry about that. Command Alt. Alt I, not Shift. This is what happens when I try and say shortcuts out loud that I normally just use in my fingers without thinking about it. So Command Alt, Command Option, same key. And that is an I, not an L. Until you get comfortable with the shortcut, I would personally inspect is probably the nice middle ground in terms of getting there. Jennifer, how are you guys doing? Again? Okay. Yeah, maybe we can chat after class. And sorry about that. All right. So once you have your DevTools open, there's a whole bunch of tabs in here. We're not actually going to talk about all of them, only because they get like very deep and very technical very quickly. And you'll have a chance to learn them once you get to a place where you need the information. We can talk about them. Probably the other instructors will tell you about them or show them to you as you're working on stuff. We're specifically going to talk about elements, console sources, and the network tab tonight. So elements, actually, frankly, especially when you're working specifically with HTML and CSS, is like your wheelhouse tab. Like, this is like where you want to hang out. So it lets you see all of the DOM elements on the page. You guys have talked about the DOM, right? Nope. Okay. Well, I'm not going to keep using a word that we haven't discussed. So really quickly, DOM stands for Document Object Model. Essentially, it's the like fancy name for like all of the HTML structure on your page. So like HTML has sort of like a structure where everything's nested inside of each other, right? And so the document object model, you'll run into, we're going to actually talk about it more thoroughly and be using it more when we start digging into manipulating HTML and CSS with JavaScript, because you need to like understand, there's the layers of your HTML, and you have to navigate those layers with your JavaScript so you're grabbing the right thing to interact with. Short note on the DOM. Basically, when people say the DOM, think your HTML document. Is a slightly oversimplified version, but that's the concept. It also shows you all your stuff for your CSS. The CSS that shows up is the one specific to whatever element you have highlighted in your element. I'm going to show you all this in a sec. You also get a nice visualization of the box model. Did you guys run into box model when you were doing intro CSS? So this can be handy when you're having like layout problems. You're trying to figure out like why these things are running into each other, or like, wait, is that a space made by a margin, or is it a space made by padding? You can look at the rules, or sometimes it's just quicker to look at the picture. And then you can actually modify all the stuff that you see in this tab. It won't, important thing to note about this though, even if you're working on your own project, it won't modify the actual files. So you can, there's like ways to set it up that you can modify stuff in here and like save it and it'll change your files. Depending on what you're working on, that's sometimes handy. Most of the time, I'll just play in here and make a few tweaks and then snag my rules and push them back into my file. Like I said, it depends on how you're working. There are ways to set up stuff that are pretty easy to Google if you want to. Hold on, I'm going to deal with this real quick. Alright, so this is code you guys have already seen, so let's do something a little more fun. Sorry, I work for a furniture company. I spend way too much time staring at this website, but
Is that there? Is that Rainmore?
nope, this is Wayfair.
I know, but that's not your, the Wayfair.
No. No. They're just one of our competitors, so I end up like going to their website all the time.
They advertise well. They're always showing up.
Yeah, no, trust me, considering how much furniture competitor research I have to do, I am like mobbed by furniture companies on the internet, on like all platforms at this point. So, yeah. Yes, for sure. So one of the other fun things about inspecting Element on just about any different website is you get to find fun Easter eggs for things that like different places. Wayfair's one of the people that does, like one of the places that does this. I've had like other companies. Oh, by the way, if you ever, when you're applying for jobs or internships or things like that, always go, this is like totally unrelated to what we're supposed to be talking about tonight, but always go dig through the website of the company you're applying for, both from like look at it to like actually learn about their company, but pull up their source code, play with it, see what you can learn by just looking at their code, see what kind of technologies they're using, like what kind of things they're pulling in. Sometimes they have really goofy Easter eggs, like Wayfair does, in terms of like, hey, you're looking at this, want to come work for us? It's the sort of thing that like, it's like, oh, it's goofy, but it's also like, if you mention it in your interview, they're like, oh, you actually did your homework. Total side note, but it's just a good idea. So, all right, so there's a couple things in here. So we have our Elements tab. So you see how that turns blue when I'm hovering over the body tag? Because it's, you know, the body tag encompasses everything inside of the website. I can basically run through stuff. So I don't know if you guys see in the upper left-hand corner this little, the little black thing that's like changing. It's because these things don't actually have, these are like data related. They don't actually have, like, they don't like take up space on the page. The script tag, all that kind of fun stuff. Most large websites like this have lots of like tracking scripts and things that they're pulling in.
I'm in Chrome also, and I have a different Wayfair. He works for. We have a different Wayfair mission than everyone else on the screen. It's got a failure to load something. Why would that happen?
So you're seeing like a console kind of a thing.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Gotcha.
Why would that happen and not to like someone in front of me?
Well, okay, so another actually interesting thing about Wayfair as a company on a side note is that they constantly do what's called A/B or multivariate testing, which means that like basically they split their traffic and they show different experiences to different, like, so maybe they say like, okay, I have 30% of my traffic to see what we're like currently doing now, and then I want to have 30% of my traffic do one new experience and 30% of my traffic do another new experience. And then they basically use their data tracking to say like, which of these experiences is better? Apparently the one that you're in has an error in it. So, which actually, maybe. Yeah, which actually, this is where one of the sections we're going to talk about again in a little bit. In your console is where your errors show up. But we're going to just play here a little bit more. So let's get to some actual page elements here.
On mine, when I hit the view elements, it goes full screen.
You can actually set how you want to see it. So these little dots up here, you can set, if you do undock into a separate window, it'll pop up into a separate window. This is actually good to note. So you can do it dock left, so it'll switch over to the left side. Which
If I research or Google reload the page, might I get something else?
you might. They generally are session based, so you might have to actually like close your browser and open it again.
Okay.
Yeah. So sessions are like,
The Chrome stuff? Got it.
yep. Because generally they're probably cookieing you to like know which experience you're in, and if you, generally they keep track of that kind of thing with like a session cookie that would end when you close it and close your browser and reopen it.
Explain. Thank you. Really good.
But yeah, so you can decide you want it at the bottom.
Right. No. Can you just?
So it's the dots.
Yeah.
Let me make this a
I see. Okay. Right.
here.
That's all.
I'm gonna make this also slightly larger here. Is that like probably way easier to read? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I want to see oh yeah, now it's a different. I have a Swagbucks browser. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So it was like full screen.
Oh, so it actually may not be their code. It might be a code you have running. Got it.
Okay.
All right, there we go. So the interesting thing out of this is they have all these, so you have all their script tags that they're loading right before the close of the body tag, which is pretty standard practice. So this is actually, this div here, so there's all that other code. this div is actually the div that contains the content on the page. So let's see, let's find some stuff to play with here. So there's their slider, and they have their grid layout for their categories here. So let's say we just decide we're like, you know, am I in the header? I don't want to be in the header. Well, maybe. Alright, so you can navigate page content by just sliding around through it. You can just keep clicking it into stuff, playing with things. There's a link here. They have their circle image with all their styling. They have a few nested things going on here. Alright. So we ended up in the graphic. There we go. This is what I was looking for. So we can actually, like, I don't feel like this saying furniture anymore. It's just going to say yellow chairs. You know, the fun stuff. So you can actually change the content. Any HTML element you see, you can actually right click on and edit as HTML, which will show you a very messy squished version of the HTML, generally speaking. But if you want to like go in here and like insert a whole new set of like, oh, you can like insert a whole new div, like add a bunch of stuff. If you want to like mess with it, you can. You can also just click out of it and do stuff like, so yeah, you can basically, it's all totally editable, but it will all also completely revert as soon as you refresh the page. So, like reverting as soon as you refresh the page.
No, like, what's the purpose of the website allowing you to play with code?
Essentially, they don't have a choice. So basically what this is this is your browser saying, hey, these are the files that, like, when you request a web page, what you're getting back is the HTML files, the CSS files that control the styling of that HTML, and then any other like images and other assets that are loaded. So all of that information exists in the browser, because they have to set, like, it's, in order for a website to show up, this stuff has to be publicly available. So like the other thing too to understand about like when you're looking at a website like this is the way that this is all like written and everything. This is not necessarily like a clear, like it's not like a picture perfect representation of how they're actually developing it. They're probably creating, like, they probably have a system, like a framework that they're using internally that's running, that could be running like JavaScript or PHP or like Python or Java, like any other language that's actually compiling all this HTML and CSS to put it together before it gets sent out into the public world. So all this code, I mean, it's stuff that exists inside their system, but
It's like a preview of what's to come.
kinda, yeah. Yeah. So that's also why you can mess with this stuff, but as soon as you refresh the page, your browser's like, oh, I'm grabbing a new copy of this file. So it overwrites anything. Really quickly, I want to show you about, you can also mess with the CSS. So anything that you have, so we're still, whatever's highlighted, so we're still at, we'll just do this for the moment. Because I zoomed in, this changed my layout here a little bit. So we're seeing any styling attached to this highlighted blue section, which means that I can, like, if I want to play with the styling in here, I can take an existing rule and edit it. So this is also cool because you can see, you know, like the whole CSS stands for cascading style sheets thing. You can see all the rules that apply to an element and then see how they overwrite each other, right? So like this one, this border box sizing rule, or box sizing border box, is overriding this other one. Like they have rules that are like overriding each other for different things. But you can also like add an element style, which would be the same thing as like saying like style equals as an attribute on the element. I'm gonna be like, I want this to have a background color. Okay, I don't know what the color blanched almond is, but you know, why not? Alright, why are we not? Or Alice Blue. That's kind of entertaining too. Oh, okay. So it is actually showing up. So that just changed the heading. Can you guys see that? It's kind of... Alright, let me change away from something that's like... Be a little more... There we go. A little more drastic. Excellent design decision on Wayfar's part, I have to say. But, I mean, that's just an example. You can play with, like... You can, any CSS rule that you can apply in a style sheet, you can apply in here. Like, so changing background colors, changing fonts, changing like if you wanted to like flip all their images upside down for some reason, you could. Like, basically, you can just mess with how the page is like laid out and displayed. Like, right now, my purpose is actually just to like kind of break it and mess with it. If this is... Yeah, you could. It's not going to change it for anything except for you. So it's not like you're deleting their whole website. Like, just delete their whole... Let's see. Yeah, sure. Why not? We're feeling destructive today. That's what's going on here. Alright. So, as HTML... I mean, I could actually... I guess I just could actually delete the whole element. But I'm actually going to... Alright. Sorry, this is what happens when you edit HTML on the body tag of a large website. Ah, so much code. Come on now. And I'm like super zoomed in, so that doesn't really help.
How long do you think it takes them to make that website with all that code?
They have a huge. I'm sure they have a huge team of developers. So, but I mean it takes a significant chunk of time. All right.
You're not actually editing for other people to see. You're just whatever you see on your computer.
Yep. Yeah. So if I'm gonna change, I'm gonna delete this, and then it's gonna like I'll refresh the page. It'll all come back because I'm not changing their actual source. I just got rid of their like I just got rid of like the particular copy of the file that I loaded, which is it's nothing basically. So yeah, if I just refresh this, it'll all be right back. Alright, so especially when you're looking through a really complicated website like this, you can do what I did in terms of like scrolling through, hovering over all the different things, like waiting for it to highlight, all that stuff. There's a really fun additional piece to the Elements tab, which are these two symbols here that are in the upper left-hand corner. So this one is called the Element Selector, which makes like I know visually where I want to go on the page. I can hover over it and click on it, and it'll take me to that piece in the code on the HTML. And then this one actually lets you do what's called device spoofing. So you can actually say like, I want to see what this would look like on an iPhone, and Chrome will basically do their best to like spoof an iPhone for you. I'll show you how it works. One thing to note about the device spoofing, it's not infallible. So like the best way to test something is always to actually test it on a real device. That being said, if you don't have any other options, it's still better than not testing it like that to begin with. So yeah, let's go with, let's see. Let's take a look at this furniture thing. So I just clicked, so I hovered over that. Did you see how it, like, it highlights stuff? And I don't know if you guys can see in the HTML on the right hand side, so like it's hovering over, like as I hover over things, it's like hopping me around in their HTML. Well, just decide we want to make this price. I was gonna go with like red, which is deciding to not let me override, which is interesting. Hmm?
Things and telling them that
There we go. Sometimes you have to like nest in a little bit. Yeah, I mean you can theoretically, yeah, I want to be like I would like this for $2.99, please. So now it's $2.99 and red, which is, you know, yeah, exactly. Of course, Wayfair's gonna be like, yeah, sorry, that price never existed in our computer. Good luck. But that's the basic concept. So, like I said, you guys should have fun with the assignment we're doing this weekend, because it's just like, it's essentially take any and all like visual CSS styling that you guys have learned, and feel free to just like go to town messing with some stuff. This is also just like a really fantastic way to learn about how other people set up websites too. So like a lot of the color blocking stuff we've done, see how other people are like being able to take your inspect element tool and like see how this is blocked out and then it's got blocks within blocks, right? Like understanding how they're laying out stuff, and then how it shifts around if you decide to do it on mobile. So you can actually control which devices show up in here. It's in your the dots on the right hand side. There's settings in here. You can decide which ones you want, but I can be like, sure, a Galaxy S5, and it's changing your dimensions associated. It's the main reason this is not like 100% accurate is because you end up with like slightly weird stuff around like the pixel density on my screen is different than like the pixel density on an iPad, and Chrome's like estimating the difference between the two and then approximating the iPad. So it's like I said, it gets you a basic idea, but like it's not perfect. Still better to check your layouts on the different sizes than not, because often you'll find like, oh, I missed a media query breakpoint. I should probably fix that. Like, has Jeff talked to you guys about breakpoints yet? I know you guys talk media queries. Breakpoints are just the word for essentially where if you're moving your design in and out, like the point at which it breaks. Like there's no media query and the styles like aren't quite right for that size of screen. Generally companies have standard breakpoints that they use that you're designing and building towards, because it's essentially like, okay, so we take into account like mobile, we take into account like vertical like tablet, then we take into account horizontal tablet, and then we take into account like desktop, right, or something like that. So like they have standard sizes that they pick. They tend to be like a tiny bit different in every company, but it's a similar concept. Yeah, anyways, it's a responsive web design piece, like in how it gets implemented. The other thing to note is when you do move things into different devices, it's often a good idea to refresh the page, because sometimes you end up with a different experience. Like, hey, Wayfair's like, hey, you're on a mobile device, you want to use our app? No, not right now. But yeah, so super helpful for testing out layouts. Also easy to switch back and forth because you can just toggle it on and off. Just kind of handy. All right. Console, as we already said, is where the errors show up. So if you're seeing, so you get all kinds of errors. So this is actually a functional JavaScript console. You can actually type JavaScript into this console and have it do stuff on the page, which is kind of fun. Useful for testing things out. And it's useful for testing things out because it lets you put your JavaScript into the context of the page you're testing it on, which is nice. You can also just mess with it too. It's another way you can mess with things. On-page error reporting. So you'll get, if your JavaScript has an error in it, the error will pop up in here. If something doesn't load correctly, you'll get your 404 errors in here. Yeah, this is generally like, if something seems broken and you're not quite sure why, it's generally a good place to start. You will also see a little red thing in the upper part of the console. So like, I have 2 red X's, so it's showing me I have 2 errors and 1 warning right now. Apparently there's a cross-origin script issue, and something related to their React is not loading correctly. And it looks like maybe there's a graphic or something that's not loading correctly as well. So yeah, it's just like you'll see lots of different things in your console. You can always clear it, and default things will come back when you refresh it, basically. That's the like quick version. You can like, there's all kinds of different things. I would just encourage you to mess with them. You can also like set up console with different pieces. We'll use this a lot more once we get into adding JavaScript onto our pages. There's a classic piece of like setting up JavaScript and debugging it, is console.log. Is like a super common command. You guys probably ran into it. We're gonna, use it in the wild a little bit. This is the console where it, like, console.log prints out in the browser. Sources. So sources are also fun because, so a website like Wayfair has like an insane amount of sources. I'm actually gonna jump over to the sources on here because they're gonna be way simpler. All right, for just a second. So sources let you see the different files that are loading. So you can see your index.html, which you generally don't bother using this to look at HTML because you have that in your Elements tab. You can do the same thing with like your CSS files. Your like with each CSS file, you can do the same thing with JavaScript files. Generally speaking, because like in the Elements piece, I can see my CSS rules, but I can't actually see them in the context of the file. So when it tells me what file it's in, I can actually go over to sources, find the file, open it up, actually see it in the context of the style sheet if I want to. Another important thing to note, most like enterprise level sites are gonna have, let's just find something fun here. Their stuff's gonna be minified when they send it to the browser. So that means, minified just means they took out all the white space, which makes them really ugly to look at. Yeah, so yeah, see, this is a JavaScript file right here. Good luck reading that. But see how this is saying like, hey, do you want to pretty print this minified file? I'm like, yeah, sure. The easy way to do that is the little curly braces at the bottom. I just do that, and it'll make it at least legible from like a formatting standpoint. It's frustrating from a learning standpoint and good from a security standpoint that generally speaking, when you minify files to send them like up to a web server, part of the minification process also replaces all of your like nice human legible variable names with letters like E and A and F, which is way better for security from the standpoint of like other people not being able to just like, ooh, what's their code doing? I know exactly what's happening right here. But also, it makes it a little less useful from like a learning standpoint, because then you're like, all right, now I gotta follow the variable like e, and I gotta like figure out, like, you gotta like do a control, you know, a find on the variable e, and you're gonna pull up like a million things. So it's like, it's not, it's just a little trickier, but it's fun because you can sometimes, when you're working with your own code and it's not minified, it'll pop up in here if you're running into an error on a particular line. So there's a debugging piece to this as well. So these tools down here, which I'm not actually going to get into this with you guys when we start doing some JavaScript next week, but the folks for Module 3, I think, where you guys are going to do like a deep dive into JavaScript, either 3 or 4, we'll probably talk about all of this, but these are cool. You can actually add breakpoints into your JavaScript to have it like, and if you have the debugging console open, it will automatically stop at your breakpoint so that you can like have it run to a certain point and then like see where things are at that point. Sounds kind of weird, can be really helpful. Depends on what you're doing. Yeah, this is sources. So this is, that's the basic things. One of my favorite things about sources, actually, that was the wrong one, is actually this little thing called Snippets, which lets you essentially write little pieces of JavaScript that you can then selectively run in your browser. So you could put all kinds of like, I generally use this, it's like if I have like a really small project I'm trying to do where I'm just trying to like grab a specific piece of information. I don't feel like jumping back and forth between a JavaScript file and like my regular page. I just want to be like, all right, is this actually like, I want to get this like functional. It's just like a little JavaScript file you can make changes to, and then you can go ahead and like run. So this is like, for example, I was taking screenshots of something and I needed to hide a couple of elements on the page that I wanted to be there so that I could like use them, but I didn't want them to like show up for my screenshots. So instead of like having to go into the elements and like rehide them over and over again, I would just run that and then it would hide them for me. However, that was not written for this page, so I'm pretty sure I just created a console error. Yes. It's like, hey, we can't actually modify the styles for these things that don't exist. But that's the concept. You can create as many snippets as you want, or go ahead and erase them. It's just a fun little, like, it's a handy tool, basically. The snippets is inside of sources, and then this little arrow piece has the other option. So, yeah. So by default, it shows you file system stuff and no, content scripts. There we go. But, great. That's sources. Oh yeah, application. There's a ton of stuff that you can do in the application tab. Frankly, you guys are not going to get to stuff like service workers for quite a long time, but you will probably get to cookies a lot sooner. And frankly, for stuff once you start ever doing projects with cookies, it's good to know where the applications tab is, because it is an easy way to clear your cookies for a particular page without having to go into like your history and clear your cookies for your entire browser, which automatically logs you out of anything that you ever were like, save my login information. That's a fun way to find out you don't remember half your passwords. But anyways, inside of application, there's a cookie section. This will show you what cookies are getting loaded. I'm gonna scoot this over. We don't actually look at on the website. Like, so you basically, these are like specific. It'll tell you like where they're getting set from. So Wayfair is apparently pulling in Amazon ads, which include cookies. They are clearly like not naming their cookies terribly, like in terribly legible manner. This is also something to note, like, this is another reason when you do eventually get around to doing cookies, you should remember that anything you keep in a cookie is not private information, because anybody that can see what cookies exist can just pull a little bit of console, like JavaScript, put a little bit of JavaScript in the console and grab the value off the cookie. So, and that there's no reason they couldn't potentially, anyways. They could do that like a bunch of different ways. So, yeah. Sadly, I'm not probably going to be teaching you guys about cookies because I always bring in cookies when we talk about cookies, but yeah. And there's like a million other fun, interesting, random things you can do with your dev tools, but those are sort of like a good place to start. And then past that, you'll run into a bunch more once you need them, you'll find them. Or Google a problem and somebody else will reference like, hey, well, you can just see this information in the like network section. You're like, okay, I'll go look it up. But yeah. Questions. I realized I didn't pause for questions during that entire thing. Sorry. Questions? This is the like I said, this stuff is like fun because you can now like sneakily look at everyone's code on the internet in a way that's like, you could always do that with like view source, but this is like much more adaptive and easier to navigate because it gives you the visual right next to the code, which is nice. I always like cringe a little bit when like people are like, oh yeah, I know where to find that, and they're like view source, and I'm like, oh, why are we doing this the hard way? Okay.
Is there anything that they don't share on developer tools? Any class that they will never do that here?
Well, so like developer tools, like I said, you only see the public-facing version, so you don't get to see any of the like back-end logic that like compiles the page. So if say like there's logic running that says like, oh, you're a customer who's like, we've geolocated in a particular place, we're going to show you a particular version of this page because it's more relevant to your location or whatever, you don't necessarily see any of that kind of stuff because they may be doing it all before they even send the file to you, for example. You don't get to see stuff like I said, any JavaScript frameworks that are writing the page, although there are always little tricks because like Angular leaves little ng attributes in their like code all over the place. React will often show up because you'll see it in the JavaScript files and things like that. You can always tell if somebody's running a WordPress site, no matter how it looks, because the files, like their image files, always have WP uploads in the path. Little things like that. But for example, like if I like know it's a WordPress file or a WordPress site because I can like tell from the image paths, that doesn't mean I can see the PHP that WordPress is using to actually create the pages. If that makes sense. Alright. Probably just about at the point where like you guys are super tired of hearing me talk and ready to get water or go to the bathroom or any of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, let's take a break. So it's like 7:10. You want to do 7:25? 15 minutes good? Cool. Alright, so I'm mixing it up on you guys, which I know is probably a little unfair considering it's Thursday night, but so I know that Jeff has been having you guys basically like code along with him for stuff, but I thought I'd mix it up a little bit tonight, and we're gonna basically do short stages, but I want you guys to actually break up into pairs. Instead of just doing them and then having you guys follow along, I'm gonna be like, alright, let's set up this layout piece. You guys can walk through, like, work out the coding together in a pair, and then we'll review it as a group. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, let's see. How many, do we have an odd number of people tonight? 2, 6, 8, 10, 12. No, we don't. Wait, because everyone's here, obviously. We have 12 students. That's not an odd number. It is still Thursday night. Alright, okay, so we might need to like rearrange seating a little bit. Sorry to make people move, but you need to be sitting next to a person that you can work with. Yeah, let's see. So, do you two want to work together, Kelly and, wait, I'm sorry, I'm still learning names. Elizabeth. Without pictures next to people's faces, I just, sorry. And then, what? Oh, okay. How about this? Maybe I'll let the TAs actually split you guys up. That, I'll make you guys responsible. No pressure, go for it. Oh, yep. So, yeah. Once you guys get settled, remember that you need to start SAS up again. So, yep.
Have you guys start SAS? SAS watch?
Yes?
SAS watch, yeah. Style, SC,
Dash watch.
right?
Space style.
Oh, I thought you said SAS.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you say SAS watch too quickly, that does sound like
Is it,
Bigfoot instead of.
style dot CSS colon, yeah. Style dot SCSS colon style. It also says SAS is watching your changes.
Hmm?
Is it because it was
Let me actually.
being like Git, and then it was like, wait, oh wait, that's
How do we know if SAS is working?
It should give you. Hold on.
Oh, wait, do current working directory start?
Yep. So you actually have to be inside your CSS folder in order to run your SAS watch. So.
WD first, then CD.
Yep.
Then DMN. Because I
Yep.
got the same error, like maybe.
Yeah, that was what I was like. I just had a moment where I was like, I couldn't remember.
Like blanking, I was like, what?
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because otherwise, when you're in your overarching folder, you need to put CSS in front of the file names.
It said error opening, but then it says staff is watching, and I'm
Yep. 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 Okay.
yeah, I didn't do it yet. Yeah.
Oops. So give me some kind of like thumbs up or something once you've got SAS correctly watching. Good. Well, it should tell you that SAS is watching for changes.
Okay, that's it, okay.
Make us a quick change, I did change it back,
Yep, you can do that too.
save it, and make sure that it says
Yep. Yeah, so if you open style.scss, you can although it looks like we're at the point where we're not actually writing directly in style.scss anymore, right?
yes, that's correct, no, we're not.
Which is good. This is a good setup for. I know Jeff knows what he's doing, so I'm not concerned. But yeah, that's a good. It's a good setup for it to be more organized.
Wasn't that big? Yeah, that was a show for him, we already did, I think, the trending, but was it the tertiary article?
So, we had our header, right? And I believe this was our primary article, and then these are secondary. Because we haven't done our tertiary. This is secondary, this is tertiary, but right now in our, this is just one big block. So this is.
No, isn't that the, what, we got,
Yeah, because
Okay.
he did
that at the end.
Yeah, so you guys are trying to do this blue block here with the four
Right.
articles in it. Oh, you don't have the orange block yet either?
He just said, don't do this, but just watch.
Got it. Okay, sorry about that.
And he made the orange block and the blue block, and then he did one.
Got it. Okay. I watched the end of class last night, but I must have missed the part about. I missed the just watch me do this part. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was like, wait.
I was also watching it at 2x, so that probably is not too surprising. It's hard to write curriculum and watch curriculum at the same time. Yeah, Jeff's actually very entertaining when he talks really, 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 really fast. Alright. So yeah, so before you worry about your 4-up articles here, let's create our two columns here. So the secondary and the tertiary. Let's start with that, okay? So orange section, blue section.
We'll, Well, that's later.
I'm like, seriously trying to remember where to go, but it was like, really good. I didn't like want to look though. I wanted to try to remember.
Well, I'm going to cheat, but I'm going to make it tiny enough that it's actually not that easy for you guys to see. So. You can go ahead and just, you can use the trending section. Use the trending section, but add 2 new container, like add a container div inside of it, and then you're going to split your container in half. Yep, because remember, container is what lets us.
We're not done.
Oh, interesting. Okay. He did this differently than I would, but. So technically you can make.
I was going to make a new section and maybe style containers. Then it would style them all.
Yep, so you're not going to style the containers. So if you do a new section, you just need to make sure you have a container inside of it.
Yeah.
And then you need to split your container. So he did this slightly differently than I would have by default, which is fine. They're both valid, but basically he made a row inside of his section, and then he split it in half. But I mean, you can do the same thing by just creating a new section with a container inside of it, and then you're going to put your articles inside of.
So this good. I know that's your version of it. Then you have to get and then show you how you thought. We're gonna catch up to here. We're gonna catch up to the point where we just have whatever articles. And then we're gonna move on to the next section.
God, you guys. Try out again. Alright. Let me zoom myself back in here. Alright. So, so I was looking at Jeff's code. I realized he and I do this like set this up just a tiny bit differently. So I told a couple of you guys to set up a new showcase section with a container inside of it. That's not incorrect. You can actually do that like it'll do the same layout. The way that Jeff did it by default is he inside of the showcase section he has his primary article, and then he added another div called showcase row. So that was why I was saying, like, I had some of you guys add another section. It's the same, like, it has slightly different semantic differences, but like from a layout standpoint, it does the same thing to have it, to move it down into a new row. The point is you're creating a new block here that you are then splitting, we're splitting in half. So showcase row then has two articles inside of it. So it's got your secondary article, and then he's got another another div in here that says showcase right. And then we have 4 tertiary articles that all they have inside them is 1, 2, 3, 4. When you guys are caught up to this point, let me know. Like, give me like a thumbs up or a smile or something. Also, can you guys in the back see this, or do you want me to zoom in a little farther? Is that better? I don't need anybody to be like, Yep, that's exactly why those, It's exactly why they're very helpful. All
they're way down there.
Okay, then you would have for that big flag. Like you need to have it, okay, right? I thought this was
Get back. Okay, so have you guys been working on putting them next to each other, or are you guys just working on? Have we caught up with HTML? All right. So. Alright. So actually we're gonna do this the fun way, especially since we were just talking about Dev Tools. So let's take a look at what styles are applying here to make these show up correctly. Let's hop back to our elements here. And alright. So showcase row. We need a display flex on our showcase row. That doesn't actually affect the width or anything on the actual row itself. It just sets it up so that the children can use flex properties. Does that make sense? It's kind of like it's the same concept as absolute positioning. It does the same thing. You have to have a parent that has a setting on it to make it work.
So is showcase row the parent of the tertiary?
Yep. So showcase row is the parent. It's the row is the box that goes around here.
Okay, so should tertiary be in showcase row?
Tertiary. Usually reading this. Yes. Tertiary. So secondary and tertiary both go inside of showcase row. So I'm actually gonna just for display purposes at the moment, I'm gonna do a border. Maybe we'll just go with white. So I just added a border on a showcase row so you can see where it goes. So it goes, showcase row is that white border. You are in base. Oops. or not, sorry, not base, sorry, foundation.css.
Foundation?
Yep. Think. Oh wait, shoot. Sorry, that was the wrong answer. My apologies. Hold on.
You were in home.
Yep.
So it's flex wrap to get it to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Flex wrap, wrap.
So yep. So we start with showcase row has display flex, and then you're gonna give these two sections. You're gonna give them each a width of 50. Alright. Jeff's gonna start teasing me because we get like make like no progress on this like whenever I'm teaching.
We do make progress because we're understanding instead of just looking at what somebody else is.
Well, that's why I wanted you guys to split up in pairs and like kind of work together to figure it out because it's like it's different when you're like Alright.
But now I need to make
Okay, so have we gotten to the point where we've got 50-50 split here? The other secondary article. Okay,
So here's everything.
In my mind, trending should be this whole thing. This whole now. Then she would showcase her own.
They're trending are separate. Yeah, because look at right here.
They say that, okay, look, let's see if you can see it well here. But let me show you guys. So this is secondary, this is tertiary. Trending is all the way down here, just the whole entire width. So should it be,
What part of the problem is? Sorry, guys.
secondary and tertiary should be within your showcase. Okay, your showcase, okay, so your showcase the purple. Yeah, so see the difference here? How this trending article section is different. Yeah, it's separate from this one. So we have a section.
I got
50 blocks in the bottom row here. I also realized it's like nearly 9 p.m. Probably will let you guys go home. I just want to make sure everybody gets this last piece. There's like 2 rules with that for that. So you need to have display flex on your showcase right here. So we're gonna, so showcase right, we've got display flex, and then we have flex wrap and wrap. So this is just on the showcase right class. So yep. So in the same place you're setting the background color blue and the width to 50%.
That I didn't read right now. This close. Victory was mine. Oh no. That was a brute slap. That's it. Oh.
Guys, this is what the code should be looking like for both for your showcase right. So you need display flex and then flex wrap. And then inside you're going to set some properties on your tertiary articles. So that's what's going on. So
And we were this close, Jen.
Really?
Something just like totally.
I wonder if my computer shouldn't be that dead. Oh, there it is.
I don't know what just happened.
We can't get this so right, so this yellow box we want to get up here. And it's not moving.
So your showcase row actually doesn't.
So the flex wrap, we have showcase right. We have our width is 50, we have a background color, which is called yellow. And we have display flex and flex wrap. Do they both go in?
Showcase row, yeah.
So
Is your show?
In my showcase, yeah, I have display flex in my showcase right. So then I would need it in my showcase right too.
In your showcase, right, you're gonna need your display flex and flex wrap.
Both of them.
I had to, and then I didn't.
Got it?
yeah, yeah, actually, it probably does. Because you're setting like 50% and you're adding. Yeah.
That was just display flex that told me to go to the right.
Yeah, there you go.
I did it so I could see it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Yeah, so because if you think about it, you're setting the width to 50%, so like each article is like 50% of
And
the
then I added like.
and then you added 3 pixels. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Alright, if you guys have gotten to the point where you've got things flex wrap,
Oh my God.
you can feel free to have to get out of here. I'm not gonna like no saying sorry.
Oh,
Awesome control ran over.
What do you mean by flex? See,
So are you if you've got it so that
we don't.
Wait.
So-
Your showcase is not a, it's not encompassing everything else. So you would need to have your second showcase is all of this. Like just close it out. End of showcase right before me.
So the div that says container showcase articles go here in the section.
I did the whole time.
But wait, hold on. All the way down. I just cut.
So yeah, so it's not the showcase, so you decided on
And then actually that
okay,
also
you can actually get
means
rid of
that
that showcase articles.
Yes.
you need to have
So yeah, so grab your section and
So Sunday, same time?
show this.
Oh yeah, that's actually true. Sorry guys, we didn't actually talk about office hours this weekend. Does Sunday at the same time work for you guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it'll be virtual.
So
Yeah, and feel free to ping me on Slack before that. But
cut that at the bottom.
and we'll post. Yeah, well, I'm trying not to have you my husband's actually out of town until Saturday night, so like you have to stay there at least until Sunday.
No, that didn't do anything.
My last day of work is like 2 weeks from now. I'm not working right up until my due date. I just don't want to go to labor.
Oh, and then secondary, so it's technically secondary.
January 9th, and he pulled me out at like the 15th. Right.
Oh, wow.
And then he was going on vacation